Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. In today's episode, we're going to take a trip to the Brickyard and recap the weekend at Indianapolis, touching on a variety of topics, including a news item on Friday that's not race-related but caught my attention, about how NASCAR got hacked. We'll discuss the strong remarks of Chase Elliott sounding off on the hot topic last week on the playoff format, of which Dale Jr. agrees. Plus, we'll talk about the weekend's races, including a milestone moment for Junior and his Xfinity Series team securing its 100th win. We'll also address the ugly incident with Austin Hill right-hooking Aric Almirola, plus the radio comments I captured from Kyle Larson and Richard Childress moments after it happened. And of course, we'll talk about yesterday's Brickyard 400, including the in-season tournament finals between the Ties, Gibbs, and Dillon, and that race, which saw a lot of strategy, and Bubba Wallace snapping his 100-race winless streak to capture his first crown jewel. But before we get into this episode, I want to tell you about a new partner I'm happy to welcome to the channel, and that's Kufandy. You've likely seen the Kufandy ad shown during the Cup Series broadcast this season, as they've partnered with the number 20 team of Christopher Bell. I'll just say, after having worn their loose-fit hooded sweatsuit set, which by the way is a Christopher Bell pick, I now know why. Not only does it look good, it feels absolutely fantastic. Seriously, the super soft material is heavyweight and most importantly, breathable. And I personally love this sweatsuit set because it's the perfect combo to wear anytime, any place. I've worn it filming episodes, around the house while hanging out with the wife, and out and about running errands. Go check out the numerous options they have on their site, including a really cool collection for you C-Bell and JGR fans. You guys haven't seen me promote many products on my channel through the years. That's because I'm very selective in who I want to work with and what I want to promote. Kufandy is exactly the kind of brand I want to be aligned with my channel. Thanks again to Kufandy for sponsoring this episode. Before we get to Indianapolis, I just wanted to talk about an interesting news item that I saw on Friday about how NASCAR got hacked by the Medusa ransomware group, which has hacked numerous organizations in the past, including some Minnesota public schools, as well as different hospitals, demanding large ransoms. In this case, the group demanded $4 million from NASCAR. According to the data breach notification filed with the Office of the Maine Attorney General, the incident occurred earlier this year on March 31st, but wasn't discovered until June 24th. Interestingly, the site Hackery.com alerted NASCAR about Medusa's breach claims on April the 8th, but NASCAR didn't respond or acknowledge anything about that particular incident. So it took more than 2 months for NASCAR to react to the attack. NASCAR has now confirmed that its systems were compromised, and the data that was stolen included names and social security numbers of its employees. But according to the site, after an analysis of sample data leaked by Medusa on its dark web site, there was more data that was stolen, including detailed maps of raceway grounds, staff email addresses, names, job titles, as well as credentialed-related information. According to the notification filed, NASCAR has informed the affected individuals and is offering 1 year of credit monitoring and identity theft protection services. One other quick non-racing related story I had to share, and that was the announcement of a high school football player's commitment to Ole Miss. Yeah, look at his name, NASCAR. Seriously, if he's getting a D1 scholarship to an SEC school, he's got to have some speed, and as a safety, I'm guessing he's not afraid to do some beating and banging on opposing receivers. Now, getting to the track on Friday, some drivers met with reporters for media availabilities. One of those was Denny Hamlin, who had announced earlier in the day that he had signed a 2-year contract extension with Joe Gibbs Racing. Here's the first question he was asked by reporters.
Denny, is this your final contract extension?
I would say probably most likely. Yeah. Who knows, but most likely.
It'll be interesting to see if he does decide to call it quits in a couple of years. On Saturday, more drivers met with reporters. The most notable comment from that session came from Chase Elliott when he was asked about the hot topic of conversation last week that started when Danielle Trotta and Larry McReynolds made comments about the old playoff format, which brought in Denny Hamlin and Mark Martin, and I talked about in last Wednesday's episode. Here's what Elliott had to say when asked about it.
What is your take right now on where things stand with the playoffs? And, could you see a situation where full season would be a good system for the Cup Series?
Yeah, I think it is a good system. I think it's fine. You have I think we've had a really good and competitive battle to the regular season over the last, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last 2 or 3 years, I think it's really been pretty tight all the way down to what's it been, Daytona, I guess, has been the final race now. So I think if you just take that as your sample set over the first 26 weeks, it looks pretty solid to me. But you know, I think that it's a situation that I'm never gonna have the keys to, and neither are y'all. And it's fun to talk about, you know, and I appreciate that. But we don't make the rules, right? I think the system would be just fine, you know, if you just had a full season. And if somebody runs away with it, so what? Like, let's celebrate the fact that somebody ran away with it. You know, like somebody was just that good. Motorsports does not have to be like everybody else to be successful, and I'll stand by that until I get done.
So clearly, Elliott sides with Martin and wants a full season points format. Martin was understandably happy to see that, giving Elliott, quote, mad respect. But look who else jumped in on the comments. That's Dale Jr., who agrees with Elliott's comments as well. One last thing on this topic is I don't normally listen to the Teardown podcast on Sunday because I'm too busy writing stories and getting ready for today's video. However, yesterday I was feeling a little under the weather and listened to it after the race. Jeff Gluck acknowledged that he's on the playoff committee and said there have been a couple of meetings at Daytona and Charlotte for the Coca-Cola 600. He said early on he was encouraged that there would be some type of format change to the playoffs for next season. However, the way things have progressed, and with NASCAR releasing the 2026 schedule in the next month or so, he doesn't see any way how the playoffs will be changed for next season. So it looks like any changes won't be coming until the 2027 schedule. With the 50-minute practice session rained out on Friday, the teams practiced and qualified on Saturday. During the qualifying session, one word came to mind: treacherous. Turn 2 seemed to be causing a lot of problems, and there were multiple drivers complaining over their radios about issues around the 2.5-mile track. But the biggest issue of all came on the final qualifying run of the day, when Denny Hamlin had a nasty crash. Take a look and listen to his radio moments after that big hit.
Talk to me, DH, you okay? Send me your key to that. Yeah. Copy, catch your breath. They're on the way to you. Apologies, guys. All good. It's all important as you're all right.
It's always a nervy moment when you see a car have a big crash and you're listening to the radio waiting for the team to hear from its driver. Thankfully, Hamlin was okay, which takes us to Saturday afternoon in the Xfinity Series race. There were two main storylines coming from the race. The first one was ugly, and it came late in the race when Austin Hill was running fourth and Aric Almirola was right on his rear bumper going into turn 3 with less than 10 laps to go. Coming out of turn 4, the number 21 car got loose, made a hell of a save, corrected it, and got it straight. It should have ended there. It did not. Instead, Hill turned left into the right rear of the number 19 car and sent it for a ride up the track and a hard hit into the outside wall. I was listening to Kyle Larson's radio when it happened. Take a listen to what he had to say about it.
Turn right and go middle. Watch one coming back across. Bottom. All good. Caution's out.
Wow, that was extremely intentional.
Yeah, not good there.
And then a short time later, I was watching the CW broadcast when Hill was being held on pit road for reckless driving. And this is what he had to say over his team radio.
All right, they're going to hold us for 5 laps for reckless driving. Oh, they can go themselves. NASCAR. That is bull. I'm sideways. I go to correct it back to the left. It gets locked to the left, and I can run into the 19.
Naturally, since that was Hill's radio, I went and listened to it some more, and Richard Childress just couldn't resist.
It would be better off that I don't say what I think, because I would be in bigger trouble. But they didn't do nothing to the 2 car when they wrecked Ty in the right rear and admitted it. 50 points. What's the deal?
I'm not really sure what Richard is saying, quite honestly. He said they didn't do nothing and then goes on to say they docked him 50 points. They also fined Cindric $50,000. That's hardly nothing. Childress was interviewed after the race and asked if he thought Austin Hill should be suspended, and his response was, hell no. So we'll see tomorrow what NASCAR has to say about it, but it sure feels like there's going to be more to come. The other big storyline was the race winner, Connor Zilisch. He won for a 5th time in 2025 and recorded the 100th win in junior motorsports history. That was obviously a significant milestone, but I want to take a closer look to show you just how damn good Zilisch has been lately. Since he missed that race at Texas due to his hard hit from the week before at Talladega, the now 19-year-old has been on an absolute heater. Look at those numbers. 9 races, 4 wins, and all of them inside the top 5. Seriously, that is so impressive. I said it last week. I'm really excited to see where this kid's going. And finally, let's move on to Sunday's race. And there were 2 races, the Brickyard 400 and the finals of the in-season bracket challenge between Ty Gibbs, who started 5th, and Ty Dillon, who started 26th. Once the green flag waved, we didn't have to wait long for some action, and it came on lap 18 when Michael McDowell got into the rear of Ross Chastain and sent the number 1 car up the track and into the wall, ending the Trackhouse Racing driver's day early. That brought out the first caution of the day and the first mention of the day's drinking word, strategy. That's because on the subsequent pit stop and for the pit stops the rest of the race, there was all kinds of strategy playing out. Most of the teams took right side tires on that first stop, but Austin Cindric, Joey Logano, and Josh Berry all stayed out. Once the green flag waved, Cindric pulled out to a 3-second lead, but due to pit cycles and having to stop, pole sitter Chase Briscoe cycled back to the front and won the first stage. He was followed by Bubba Wallace, who also started on the front row, William Byron, Tyler Reddick, and Chris Buescher. During the stage break pit stop, it was second verse same as the first, with teams employing various different strategies and taking tires and fuel. The stage 2 restart proved to be chaotic for multiple drivers as there was a pretty big stack up. Those suffering some sort of damage during the incident were Kyle Busch, who had finished 6th in the first stage, Tyler Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and Austin Dillon. Both RCR cars involved, and you know Richard Childress wasn't happy. Once we got into the second stage, the radios of the different teams started talking about weather as drops started to fall from the sky, which was something that had been predicted all weekend long and had already rained out the 50-minute practice session on Friday. On lap 79, or just short of the halfway point of the race, William Byron was the first of the cars running up front to come in for the pits. Around that same time, Austin Cindric, who was in the lead, had a right rear going down, but there was no caution. The Team Penske driver's issue was a precursor of things to come. Our second incident of the day came out with 11 laps to go in that stage when Erik Jones had a really bizarre scenario happen, losing the wheel itself but not the tire. Unsurprisingly, there were a lot of different strategies during that pit stop. Ryan Blaney opted to stay out, and when the race resumed, he won the 4-lap sprint to the stage finish. He was followed by Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, and Brad Keselowski. Did you hear who finished 3rd? Yes, Denny Hamlin, who had started at the back of the field. Interestingly, after getting the stage win, Blaney's team was fearful that he was going to run out of gas, and he had to go down pit road before it was open. He was sent to the tail of the longest line, which takes us to that third and final stage. And we had the 2 big hitters up front with Larson and Hamlin restarting on the front row. Because teams had been planning ahead throughout the race, there was only going to be one final fuel stop in the last stage. Josh Berry and Joey Logano started the final round of pit stops around lap 118. Over the course of the next 10 laps, and once all those running up front had made their stops, Joey Logano was the presumed leader with Bubba Wallace right behind him. With 30 laps to go, the number 22 team expressed concerns over the radio about making it to the end on fuel. The number 23 team had no such concerns. And then with 26 laps to go, fuel was no longer a worry for Logano because he suffered a flat right rear, similar to what Austin Cindric experienced earlier in the race. That meant Wallace would be the leader once Ryan Blaney and Catherine Legg made their final pit stops. When the number 12 pitted with 18 laps to go, Wallace had a 5-second lead over Kyle Larson, but had a little buffer with Tyler Reddick in between. However, Reddick was unable to hold off the HMS driver, and he made the pass with 17 laps to go. It felt eerily similar to a year ago as Larson made his way to the front and won that race. As the laps dwindled down, Larson crept closer and closer and had it down to just over 3 seconds with 6 laps to go. And then Mother Nature had one final say for the weekend. Listening to the different team radios, and everyone was talking about how much fuel they had, and those running up front, particularly William Byron and Bubba Wallace, were saying that they could make it through one green-white checkered, but not 2. On the first overtime restart, Byron lined up behind Wallace and didn't push. Despite that lack of help, Wallace pulled out to the lead, but then in a bizarre incident, Christopher Bell got into Zane Smith and brought out the caution. Christopher Bell has had a rough couple weeks with that crash, and then last week spinning twice on his own at Dover. That took us to a second overtime restart, and on that restart, Wallace surged out to the lead and cruised to victory, beating Kyle Larson and the rest of the field for his first win in 100 races and capturing his first crown jewel event. Wallace was followed by Larson, Hamlin, Preece, and Keselowski. Others of note were Todd Gilliland earning his second consecutive 6th-place finish at the Brickyard, Carson Hocevar finishing 10th, Justin Haley right behind him in 11th, and Catherine Legg recording a solid 17th place result. And in the in-season bracket challenge, Ty Gibbs won the $1 million. He finished 21st. and Ty Dillon finished 28th. After the race, Wallace was interviewed at the finish line and brought up a subject addressing one of his regular online critics. Watch this.
I'm already winning at life. I got the best wife, the best kid. People are always going to say something. I am excited to see how far the goalpost has moved. So I get to go and chase that now. So how many days since my last win? That's right.
100 since his last win, and
Zero.
It's zero. Yeah, now it's zero. That's right.
Marty Snyder was referring to the 100 race winless streak, but Wallace was actually referring to a person who regularly posts on X calling out how many days it's been since Wallace had won a race. That's what Wallace was talking about. The story took an even funnier turn a bit later when that person, who calls himself Splash and Go, posted this, quote, "Bubba Wallace hasn't won a cup race in 3 minutes," end quote. To which Wallace later responded with this hilarious gif, obviously acknowledging the humor of his critic. I know we hear all the time how drivers don't show emotions and drivers don't have personalities. Wallace does. He showed it in the post-race interview, getting emotional talking about how the sport is hard as blank and how he's overcome his mental struggles, even acknowledging how he was doubting himself in those final 20 laps on whether or not he could win the race. After seeing someone I love dearly struggle with similar issues for years, including depression and anxiety, I totally appreciate Wallace's comments and am overcoming those demons, and more importantly, his willingness for all these years to share them openly with the public. That takes courage, and I for one am happy to see anyone who overcomes those struggles and find success because I know it's not easy. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. We talked about a lot of different topics. Let me hear what you thought about them. Let's start with the fun story of the football player named NASCAR. I want to know if any of you out there know of anyone else with that name. Seriously, that's commitment. Second, I want to hear your thoughts on Chase Elliott supporting a full season points format and getting support from Mark Martin and Dale Jr. Moving on to the Xfinity Series race, what do you think should be the punishment for Austin Hill? And I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about Richard Childress's comments. That's twice in a week the 79-year-old team owner has been in the news for his radio remarks. Sticking with Xfinity, Zillage has won 5 times already. How many races do you think he wins by the end of this season? And finally, what did you think of the race and Bubba Wallace winning his first crown jewel and snapping his 100-race winless streak? Once again, I'd like to thank Kufandi for sponsoring this episode, and Beating and Banging fans can get a great discount of 25% off their next order. Enter code BEAT25 for a 25% discount. Click on the link in the description. Thanks again for checking out the latest episode and supporting the channel. I really and truly appreciate it and hope you have a great rest of your day.